Right. Well, yeah, my name's Josh, which you know, and I'm a writer for the DisInsider. Um, Before we dive in, I'd love if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, just so anyone that's watching can know a little bit about your work.
Yeah, my name is Steven Anderson, and I'm an animation director, storyboard artist. I've been working for Disney Animation for just a little over 26 years now, between feature animation and television animation. Been about 26 years. And that's very hard to believe.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. Um, by the way, do you prefer to go by Steve or Steven? Or
I mean, I usually go by Steve, but my credit is Steven, so I don't know
okay,
what the best way to go is. But
okay,
like in life, I'm Steve.
okay. That's why I thought I'd ask, just in case you had a preference.
Yeah.
So first, I would just want to talk about your time at Disney in general, ask you some questions about that, and then the second half, talk a little bit about Monsters at Work, specifically.
Yeah.
So first is kind of just a broad, kind of where did you get your start? How did you start at Disney to begin with?
Well, I started at Disney in 1995. My first job there was a story artist on Tarzan, which was a pretty awesome movie to have as one's first experience at Disney. Um, Prior to that, I worked a few years at another studio called Hyperion Animation, where I had been. It was a small studio, so the cool thing about small studios is you oftentimes get to wear a lot of different hats. So I was an animator, I was a storyboard artist for TV. I also directed some TV there. And then just part of that, I was a student at Cal Arts for about 3 years. One of the many Cal Artians that are out there in the world.
Yeah, that definitely does help, Cal Arts, and oftentimes will get you down the road to Disney, which is pretty neat.
Yeah.
So you talk about having all those hats, and that's actually kind of what my next question was about. I mean, you've had a lot of different jobs over the years. Like you said, you've directed,
Yeah.
you've animated, you've even done some voice acting in some of those movies too. What's that process like, changing roles from project to project?
It's interesting because every movie, every project, or I shouldn't say just movie, every movie, TV show, whatever,
Yeah.
sort of its own beast, and sometimes it feels like you're starting over from scratch every time you start, and which is kind of cool because you obviously are bringing stuff that you've learned prior onto this new project, but there's also that feeling of a clean slate. So sometimes that's why uh, you step in to do a different role on this movie that you might have not done on the previous one, or it's kind of like a discovery process each time, which is really cool. I definitely like I've loved everything I've been able to do. Directing is really my passion,
Hmm.
and the thing that I really always wanted to do. I think the most in my life. So I feel very fortunate that I've gotten to do that. And so now for me, it's like I want to keep directing, but I want to keep finding different types of things to direct, or
Sure.
work with different teams, work with different types of people, work with in different formats,
Hmm.
like Monsters at Work, a
Right.
serialized streaming show, which is very new to me,
Hmm.
which has been really fun. So it's kind of about finding what are the new discoveries you can make on each project.
Sure. And I know, and sometimes your own input kind of can determine what you end up doing. And Meet the Robinsons, for example. I know that was sort of more of a personal story to you, and that you're like, I have to direct this, which is pretty
Yeah.
awesome that they hear that, and then sometimes that will have an impact on what you actually are doing on whatever's being worked on.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. It was a really interesting coincidence because they didn't hand me the script knowing that I had any kind of prior, you know, experience with adoption or any of that stuff. So um, that was like a meant to be kind of thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
um, so, but I think in every project, that was a really great example of, again, one of those kind of coincidence, happy accidents that was great. But on every project, you find a way to connect with something, like you find your connection point, no matter what
Hmm.
you're doing. If you're doing a voice, if you're doing doing voice acting, if you're writing something, if you're storyboarding something, directing something, I think everything I've been able to kind of find that connection point on, which is really, I think, really helpful. And
Yeah.
necessary to really
Hmm.
pour yourself into what you're doing.
Yeah, because if you're not enjoying it and you can't find a connection, it's not going to feel the same, and it's not going to be as enjoyable, I would
Yeah.
imagine. Um,
Yeah, I mean, you'll have fun doing it, and it'll come out fine.
mhm.
But it's oftentimes what separates good stuff from great stuff, I think, is when you can really feel the passion of the people that were making the particular show or film, whatever it might be. I think you really know the difference. Audiences can
Yeah,
tell, I think.
yeah. When I've looked at kind of the course of your career, it's interesting because you've been able to bring, new worlds to the screen in several instances, but then you've had to continue worlds that have existed prior. So
Yeah.
100 Acre Wood and Winnie the Pooh, for example, and then Monstropolis and Monsters at Work. Do you find one more difficult than the other?
Um, they're both great. They both have their challenges. Obviously, creating a new world from scratch is that age-old problem of staring at the blank page, going, "Okay, what do we do? Like, we can do
Mhm.
anything.
Yeah.
Where do we start?"
Hmm.
Um, the nice thing about picking up, with a world that's already been established, is you can just start working. You know
Hmm.
the rhythms, you know the vibes, you know how the characters sound. Particularly like with Winnie the Pooh, those
Yeah.
characters were so defined, and like we just got in the room, and you could immediately, like, you just threw a couple characters in a situation, and we could immediately just start riffing on what would happen
Hmm.
with them. Same thing with Mike and Sully, certainly
Hmm.
with Monsters at Work. um, but then the new characters of Miffed
Hmm.
in Monsters really was fun, because that it's like Monsters was an interesting combo of like blank slate and stuff that exists that you can leverage off
Sure.
of. So that was kind of fun to mix those two things. But um, uh, yeah, that was
Hmm.
they're both great, though. I mean, they both have their high points.
Yeah. I'd imagine on the flip side of that, though, when you are working on something that is already established, you have people's expectations that you have to think about, which
For
can
sure.
be a difficulty that you don't necessarily have to face when you, like you said, you have a blank slate, because people, they just go in and they don't have any necessarily as many preconceived notions.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'll do a quick word about both of those. Winnie the Pooh is like, everybody knows when it's not Winnie the Pooh. So we had to really make sure that we were, it was easy to kind of like veer into Looney Tunes territory, or
Mm,
maybe that joke's a little too SpongeBob. Then
mm.
like Rabbit is not Squidward, although he's a little bit similar, but
Maybe, yeah.
it's that balance kind of thing. Um, and that's so beloved that, well, in the same, and so is Monsters Inc. That's another
Hmm.
thing. And I certainly knew that getting onto the show, but now as the show's about to come out, now I'm really realizing, oh, people really, I mean, it's a really popular franchise, as it should be, and
Hmm.
people love this world and love these characters, and so now starting to really feel that, like,
Yeah.
but I think we really honored the spirit of the originals, for sure.
Yeah, well, I'm very excited to see it, and it's pretty monumental because, I mean, there was the prequel, Monsters University, but this is the first time we've seen what happened to Mike and Sully after the
Yeah.
screams have changed to laughs and all this and that kind of stuff. Which I was a kid when the Monsters Inc. came out. I remember the old DVD of it that I watched as a kid, and so now I get to see what happens next, which is a pretty amazing opportunity.
Yeah, I thought it was really smart decision that Bob Scanaway, the EP of Monsters, made to kind of, let's start the day after and see all
Mm,
the aftermath. Because I think, as we all know, we've all heard this said before, that great stories usually take place during a time of transition,
mm,
and that's where a lot of drama can happen, is when a world is in flux,
mhm.
and the old ways are going away, new ways are being established, but it's right in between. So, you know neither things have been dispelled. It's that kind of gray area, and so that's where we start the show, which I think makes it really interesting.
And that's so true to life too, right? I mean, those transition periods in life are, yeah, some of the most difficult times when you don't know
Yeah,
what the other side's going to look like.
exactly.
So I think
And you
reflecting that.
cling a bit to the old way, which was like, oh, I knew it, that's familiar,
Oh yeah.
and the new way is scary, but it's
Hmm.
coming, and I can't do
Hmm.
anything about it. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Um, Last question before we get all the way into Monsters at Work. I
Yeah,
I know that
sorry, I
you. Oh
keep
no, I mean,
redirecting.
no, this is great. I know that you've been writing a book about Disney animation, actually,
Yeah,
the kind of that period between Walt Disney and Michael Eisner, which is just an utterly fascinating time.
yeah,
Could you speak a little bit about that project, working on that?
yeah. Speaking of another, time of huge transition
Right.
at a beloved institution like Disney, um, it started off with just a love of that time period because that's the Disney that I grew up with, the
Mm.
70s and early 80s. That was my Disney of childhood, my childhood Disney.
Hmm.
Um, but then also, as I got out into the industry and I started meeting the people that were players during that time, particularly in animation, you start to realize, wow, there's a lot of drama and there was a lot of struggles in terms of like, okay, what's Disney animation going to be now without Walt Disney? What is the new Disney going to be? How much of it will be old? Will hold on to the tried and true, and how much of it is going to break all this new ground and be wildly different? Um, so it's a really and it happened in both live action and animation as well. So
Sure.
it's it's just I think a really fascinating story of this place that was founded on forward thinking that lost its way a bit in this with this huge disruption of the loss of Walt Disney.
Mm-hmm.
And they tried for quite a while to reestablish equilibrium, but then also figure out what's the new normal. And it took a while. My book is 66 to 86, so it's at 20
Oh,
years
okay.
basically, which is right with Walt Disney's death, and then like a year and a half into the Eisner Katzenberg
Hmm.
um, regime, where you can really start to feel like they turned it around. So that's my I've been working on it probably for well over 10 years, compiling
Wow.
reviews and stuff like that, and now I finally got the thing written. So
Oh, good.
um, hoping to get it out very soon. Really excited about it. It's been really fun and something I'm really passionate about. So thanks for asking
That's
about it.
awesome. Yeah, I'm eager to take a look at it when it's out.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll let you know.
yeah. Oh, awesome. Thanks. Um, so I was looking at kind of the things that you've done, and a lot of them have taken place at Walt Disney Animation. And this is a Pixar property. Is this the first time you've the Monsters at Work? First time you kind of worked with the Pixar property?
Yeah, absolutely. Very
Mhm.
first time. Um, um, yeah, Pixar has been great with kind of being a creative resource for us to run things by them, like scripts, like outlines, like early animatics and the storyboard animatics, and to give us some really great story notes and keep us on track in terms of the legacy of the project. So that's been great. Uh, so yeah, I mean, I know a lot of the Pixar folks, and I've
Sure.
interacted with Pixar
Mhm.
many times over the years. Obviously, since John Lasseter used to be my boss, so there
Of
was a
course. Yeah.
you know
There's a crossover
uh,
there in any way. Yeah.
definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
But this is the first time I've actually like 100% worked on something, so it's been really fun.
That's
It's been really
awesome.
cool.
That's cool. What attracted you or kind of drew you into the world of Monstropolis? I mean, we talked about that world's been around for many years now, that fictional
Yeah.
universe. But yeah, attracted you to that, to revisiting it?
Well, it was an invitation from Bob Ganaway, the showrunner,
Mm,
who I knew from a short stint that I did at Disney Toon Studios,
mm,
um, where Bob's was doing at the time. Bob's was doing the Planes, Fire, and Rescue movie,
mhm,
so I got to know him a little bit there. And then they were looking for um, a director to come on board, and it was the perfect timing for me. And then when I started thinking of the property, I was like, well, what could be more fun than drawing and writing for a bunch of funny talking monsters? That, I mean, like, how can you not have fun doing that?
right, of course.
And it's still a heartfelt world. There's still emotion. It's not just like goofy stuff
Hmm.
100% of the time, but for the most part, it's just going to be a lot of fun, telling this really great story of these entertaining characters. So it was like, well, yeah, everything's kind of lined up perfectly. it was the right invitation at the right time, and then again, just the fun of the the fun of the potential of the project to be fun
Hmm.
to work on every day was like, I can't pass it up. And it was fun every day. Obviously challenges, there are challenges, everything has challenges.
Right.
But like creating the show was just a blast, and the team was wonderful. So it was a really, really great project.
That's good to hear. And I was going to
Yeah.
ask, speaking of timing, how did I know if we're always talking about how the COVID pandemic impacted, the
Uh,
industry in so many ways. Where was this production at when kind of everything shut down?
well, we were just about to, let's see, we were just about to start, um, episodes were just about to start being animated.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember if we had actually shipped our first episode or if we were just about to ship our first episode. Most of them had been, I think we still had like maybe 3 or 4 episodes in storyboards,
Hmm.
um, before they'd been approved to go into our layout phase, our camera cinematography phase that we had. Um, so it was like almost the end of pre-production and right on the cusp of the beginning of shot production.
Hmm.
Um, and the funny thing is, when I look back on it, I'd only been on the project for about 8 months, I think, when
Hmm.
we hit COVID.
Wow.
And uh, to think that I spent like more of my time at home here on this desk,
Wow.
on the show. It's hard to believe, because I think because I really fell in love with the team so quickly that it felt
Mhm.
like, in the best possible way, I mean this, it felt like we've been working together for a long time. Like we had such
Hmm.
a great rhythm, and I felt like I'd known them, for years and years and years. Um, and I tell you, other than a few speed bumps during the transition from being in the building to work from home, like nobody missed a beat.
Mm.
And we established that new normal, pretty quickly, and just got it done. So I can't believe you can make cartoons from your living room. It's amazing.
Right. Well, I think that just speaks to the quality of the people involved, though. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously we have technology and everything, but yeah, not everybody could work at that level at home with all the distractions around us. It's
yeah,
not easy. I would,
I agree.
I would imagine.
And yeah, and everybody's got a different situation, and
Mhm.
some people, like, I know kids and pets and responsibilities, it's tough, but man, I think it just speaks to the real passion and dedication of the team, because everybody really put 200% of themselves in this show, and I think you'll be able to see that.
Yeah. Wow. Well, my last question for you is, what does this particular Monsters at Work show offer audiences that maybe the first two films didn't?
I think, Monsters at Work really gives a glimpse into different different areas of Monsters at Work, and particularly, excuse me, different areas of Monsters Inc.,
Hmm.
the company,
Hmm.
in particular the Monsters Inc. facilities team, which is where our main character Tyler Tussman is assigned once he realizes he can no longer be a scarer.
Right.
So he's dumped into the Monsters Inc. facilities team, to these bunch of loonies down in the basement of Monsters Inc. Um, so we get to see, we get what we call the monsters behind the monsters.
Mm.
Mift are the monsters that keep things going. They do all the repairs, and they, um, keep Monsters Inc. rolling.
Hmm.
And so we get to see that side of things. We get to go into, we saw the door vault, that great climax in
Right.
Monsters Inc. film. We get to go into more of the inner workings of the door, uh, like the door ducts,
Okay.
and where doors are shredded, like what they call the shredder shaft, where doors that are dead go to die, and they get
It's
all ground
terrifying.
up into pieces. Yeah. So we get to see a lot. I mean, it's fun, by the way. I'm not
Right.
trying to say
Of
that
course.
that's like a go to die. They don't go to die. Um, but so we get to see a lot more of the inner workings of behind the scenes of Monsters Inc., which is really, I think, fun.
Hmm.
Uh, and but then we still get to spend time on the scare floor, which is now the laugh floor.
Right.
and see how all the monsters are dealing with that transition. So we get to return to the places that we loved in Monsters Inc., and then we get to see sort of what happens behind the scenes of those places that we
Hmm.
loved from Monsters.
And I'm sure the time that, I mean, like you said, it's a streaming show, so you have more time to take that behind the scenes look that maybe you don't have in an hour and a half, movie, uh,
Yeah,
which, yeah,
totally.
does offer a unique way of interacting with this world.
Yeah, and to be able to explore little. What I love about the whole about streaming series in general, as I've become more of a fan of these over the years, is just you can tell this overarching story, but then you can take an episode or two and sort of go off on this little tangent and do this
Hmm.
little, you know, piece that maybe would never have fit in an hour and a half narrative. It would have felt like, well, we that would have been something that would have been cut really early because it doesn't advance the story. But you can go off on a little tangent, but then you can just come back to the main story that you're telling and continue it. So that's what's fun too, is that as Tyler, our main character, is learning about all the mifters and learning about what it means to be a jokester, rather than being a scarer. You can explore some of these little neuroses that he has, these moments of frustration, or these moments where he's trying to prove himself in ways that he'd never had to before. You can kind of, I like being able to go off and explore
Hmm.
those character things, and then you can come back to some more plot episodes, which I think is
Sure.
is nice.
And having those tangents can also, you can explore different genres a little bit. I think, I would imagine some of those
Yeah,
one-offs, kind of like, you think of the old Looney Tunes. Each one was directed by, a different artist, and each one would have just, I mean, you're like, oh, you can tell that's Chuck Jones card, that's a Chuck Jones Looney Tune, or that's a Frizz
yeah,
Free, like, because of the way that they are styled. And you can, not this quite the same thing, not apples to apples in this case, but I mean, if you have a one-off, you can explore different things.
yeah. It's totally true. We have episodes that are like, action episodes, and then we have some episodes that are just really very simple plot,
Hmm.
and it's all character, and they can be a little more comedic, or a little. Some of them are slightly, a little more. I don't know if weird's the right word, but in my opinion, I'll use the word weird. So weird in a great way, like
Sure.
exploring a little offshoot again of
Mhm.
of the life of the Monsters Inc. facilities team, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm with you. It's great because some episodes have, high stakes for Monstropolis and Monsters
Mm.
Inc., and
Mhm.
others, the stakes of the episode are literally Tyler's self-esteem.
Sure.
you know so it's also cool to kind of be able to go macro and then go micro.
Definitely.
uh you know
That's neat. Well, I'm yeah, very excited for the show. When I read the premise and watched that new trailers last week, I mean, yeah, I fell in love with it. So I'm really looking
Awesome.
forward to it. Um,
Great.
those were all the questions I had, but is there anything else you wanted to add about the show, or anything else before we wrap things up?
I'll reiterate again what a blast it was to work on, and I cannot wait for the world to see Monsters at Work and meet Tyler and all the new mifters, and get reacquainted with our old friends Mike and Sully. So,
Sure. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me
yeah,
about this. And yeah, it was
absolutely.
great.
Right.
Great. Well, thank you. I
Thanks, Josh.
appreciate it once again. Yeah.
Good thing. Take
Yeah.
care. Have a good day.
See you later. You too.
Bye.